get started now. What are we talking about today? It's a very short module on code coverage and what code coverage is. We've done unit testing along the way. We've done asynchronous testing as well along the way. But today we will see what code coverage in Xcode gives us, right? So basically, what code coverage is, it shows us how much of our app is actually tested, right? It gives us a percentage of how much of that particular class and our app is tested. So if you are given an app, if you're given a class, for example, a fellow model, if you run code coverage on your application, it will tell you whether 100% of that class has been tested, meaning have you written a test method for each of the methods you have in the fellow model. If you've written a test method for every functionality in that model, then it's going to be 100% code coverage, right? If there's no test, it's going to be closer to zero, okay? So code coverage gives us a glimpse or some sort of metric as into how much of our code is really tested, right? So obviously with that metric, the closer you get to that 100%, the better your code coverage is, right? Code coverage itself doesn't tell you, okay, there's no bugs in my app or my app is bug-free, but it gives us a glimpse as to, yes, I've written a test for every function in my model or my view controller, right? So that's what code coverage gives us, right? It's the next way to find out how much of our code is tested. We could write unit tests as much as we want, but adding code coverage on top of it gives us a metric, a number to say, hey, my app is covered 85%, or my app is covered 50%. I could probably do better. I could probably write more tests in there, right? So today, our objective is to create a simple app and see what the code coverage on the app is as we add more tests to it, okay? So this is the objective of today.
I got a question.
Yep.
What's a good percentage of code coverage?
I was waiting for that question. There's people that really strive to get into 100%, no matter what. Some people say 70%, right? Anything that's above 70 or more is better than lower than that number, right? Trying to get to 100% could have you doing the wrong things in your code base, like trying to gauge the system to say, oh, I'm at 100%, right? But just striving to get to that number is ideal.
Okay.
Very good. All right, so let us keep going here. We'll create a new Xcode project. It's going to be a project, not a playground. And let's give it a name so we could find it easily. We'll call it code coverage. And we'll just be testing. Code coverage testing, that's fine. Again, we're not going to add any unit tests. I'll add it after because most people sometimes either did not add it or forgot how to add it after the fact. So I just started. If you know how to go back and forth, you could just add it right away. But for now, I'll just keep it unchecked, and then we'll add it after we've created the project. Okay. So for now, just keep include unit testing unchecked. And desktop is fine. Let me get this bigger. Dark. Okay. Now let's go add a unit test target. So go to the testing navigator here. So at the top where my mouse is, this is all the navigator items. The first one is the project, what we'll be dealing with today. The first one is the project navigator. That's where all our files are. We have the issues navigator here. We have the testing navigator here. Right now we have no test. And we'll also take a look at today. Over here, we have what's the report navigator. This tells us every time we run our code, it gives us information about what the test was or what the build was. So that's where we'll be going back and forth. So this is the report navigator. We'll come here. Once we add code coverage, unit test is in our testing navigator. And if we want to see our files, we go back to the project navigator here. Okay, so let's go add a unit test target. So go to the test navigator, the diamond here, go to test navigator, Right now we have no test. We go down to add a new unit test target by clicking on the add button here. And we're gonna add a unit test. After Capstone, we'll take a look at UI testing, but for now, we're just working with unit test targets. We'll keep the name the same. What it does, it takes the project name and it adds a suffix of test to it. So we'll just keep that. And we'll go ahead and click finish. Great. So now if we see, we have two target project folders. We have our app project and we have this test project here. And inside of it, what's that?
What did you do? My internet went off. Like, how did you? I forgot.
So we added a test target, right? If you click on the test navigator, it's empty for now, right, for you?
Yeah.
Okay, so go down. Do you see the plus button at the bottom left?
Oh, okay, yeah.
So click on it and then click on add new unit test target.
Okay.
Yep, and just keep the name that it gives you by default.
Okay,
All right,
thanks.
very good. And this is where we are. Okay, great. So now let us go ahead and create a new model. We'll create a new model. We created a new model in our project files, not in the test here, just in the project files. We'll create a new model, new file, Swift file, next, and we'll just call it fellow model. And we'll create a struct here called fellow. Fellow has a name, which is a string. Fellow has class they belong to. We'll just call this a stack. So example, iOS, Android, web. Fellow has is job ready, which is a Boolean. Great. Fellow has a Twitter handle. Fellow has a LinkedIn profile. We write a function here called can be a mentor. Okay. So can be a mentor, we'll say if is job ready, return true, else return false. Well, gotta return a Boolean. Next, we'll create a function here called has a social presence. We'll say if Twitter is not empty and LinkedIn is not empty, then return true, else return false. And lastly, we'll write a simple static function here to get us some fellows. So static get fellows returns an array of fellows. And we'll just return an array. Fellow. Name George. George belongs to iOS and is job ready. And we'll have an next fellow here. Header belongs to Android. Is job ready? True. Comma. So here we have 3 functions. After writing those functions in our model, we'll go ahead and add code coverage, because right now Xcode by default does not do code coverage. You have to go ahead and add it, right? Did everybody get the functions in?
Yep.
Okay, cool. So now let's go ahead and add code coverage to our project here. So to get to editing your code coverage, you need to go to the top toolbar, to the scheme. Do we all see where it says code coverage testing here? And it has the simulators? Yes?
Yep.
Yep.
Okay, all right. So here we're gonna edit the scheme by clicking on code coverage testing. Do we see edit scheme in the dropdown?
Yep.
All right, very good. So click on edit scheme. Click on edit scheme, and if test is not selected, make sure test is selected here in the left panel. So if test is not selected, select test. And if you're in test, you should see code coverage is unchecked. Do we all see that? Hello?
Yeah.
All right, cool. So now we want to go ahead and check that box, right? Because by default, there's no code coverage support. You have to go ahead and add it. Okay, so now go ahead and check it. Make sure you check that box. I'm sorry?
I don't see code coverage.
Did you click on test?
I did click on test.
You have to click options.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. Options. So yours was probably on info?
Yeah.
Okay,
Thank
so Xcode caches my last results. So again, test, go to options. Thank you. Test, go to options, and you should see now code coverage there. You see it, Chelsea, now?
Yeah, thank you.
Very good. So click on it, and here it says targets. You could add targets individually, right? So if I click on some targets here, for example, and I could click on add button, and I could get to add what target I want. For example, if you have a Firebase project, you don't want to test the pods, right? You only want to test your own code. If you want to test your own code, you click on the code coverage, the one with the at logo next to it, like the app logo next to it. Yes?
Yeah.
And then click on add. So now it only tests things in this particular folder here. Everybody with me?
Yep.
All right, cool. So now when you're done.
Wait, sorry. Can you go back? You said that for the test, if you test all targets, instead you'll press some targets.
So you could do all targets, right? It's just gonna test everything, including your Firebase projects if you have them, your Firebase pods. If you say all targets, it takes all targets in the project.
So, but we don't want all targets.
Right, we don't want all targets because we don't want to test. Well, right now we don't have Firebase in this app, but assuming you have Firebase in the app, you don't want to go ahead and test Firebase pods as well.
Okay, so if I put some targets and just put the project in, does it make a difference, or should I just change it back to all targets?
For now, just get used to selecting the targets you want.
Okay, so just the code coverage with the project symbol next.
Yeah, exactly. So this one, and then click on add.
Awesome, thank you.
And when you're done, just click close. And now let's go ahead and just run, let's just run test. So Command U to run test. Make sure you have a simulator selected, not a generic device. Make sure you have a simulator selected. At this point, it says test succeeded, right? Everybody has test succeeded?
Yeah.
Yes? Okay.
Yeah.
So now let's go see what our code coverage is. So we go into the navigator tools here, the top tools for the navigator. We go into the report navigator here, the last one, the last icon. Click on that, right? Click on, do we see where it says coverage in the left panel?
Yes.
Click on coverage. And here overall, do we see the slider or the slider where it says code coverage and it says like 40% or so?
Mm-hmm.
All right, so that says 40% of our app is tested. We could open up the drop down to see more of what's tested. And the one we're interested in right now, because we did not write SynDelegate, we did not write app delegate, we haven't done anything in the ViewController, but our particular model, 0% is not good. Everybody with me?
Yeah.
Right? So right now, nothing is tested in our model, right? And it shows it correctly here, it's 0%, right? So we could do better, right? And it shows you the functions as well that you have here. It shows you the functions that's tested, nothing is tested. So we could do better. So let's go ahead and do better. So in our test folder, we could create, it comes with a default test class here. Let's actually just delete that. And let's create a new folder. Or a new file, sorry. Create a new file inside of the code coverage testing test. Okay, right in here, create a new file.
You deleted the entire.
I deleted the coding coverage testing that Swift file.
And we just do move to trash.
Yeah, move to trash.
Okay.
And we'll create a new testing class.
Gotcha.
So new file. New file. Do we all see unit test case class here?
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. So we're creating a new test class. Okay. Somewhere you could create a Swift file, you could create a test class. So select unit test case class, click next. And here we'll just call this fellow test, plural, because you could have more than one test in that class. So fellow test, and click next. And click create. Make sure it's part of, stop here, make sure it's part of the test and test target and not your regular project. Everybody with me?
Yeah.
All right, click create. Would you like to bridge?
What did you click? You said.
Go ahead and add the bridge. It wanted me to create a bridge for what do I call it? For Objective-C. Okay. Go ahead and remove all the boilerplate tests in here.
What does that mean to create a bridge for Objective-C?
That means if you test in Objective-C classes as well, but we're not writing any Objective-C here.
Okay, but you just added just.
Yep.
Okay, gotcha.
All right, what else we need to set up here if we want to test our fellow model?
You want to import the model? Import.
Import what?
Import the project.
Import the project. Yeah, very good. Okay, so let's go ahead and do so. So testable import, what is it called? Code coverage testing. Great. And let's go ahead and test our functions. So right now we have a can mentor. Let's write a test here. Function test can be mentor. All right, if we go back to our fellow model, in our fellow model, we'll just test this first one, can be a mentor. So here we're writing a unit test, right? So this is unit testing. So can be a mentor, we'll just start up with our arrange, our act, and our assert. Whoa. So can be a mentor, let's create a fellow. Fellow name, Nancy C belongs to iOS, and Nancy is not job ready here. Okay, let's call our function. Expected result. Expected results. We'll call our function. Our function is an instance method. So you only could call it on the instance, on an instance. This is an instance. Now I could call my instance method. Can be a mentor. This returns a Boolean value. And expected here, XCT assert equal expected result. What are we expecting here?
False.
False. Why? Because here, this is false. If I pass, if the fellow is false, it should return false, and our function should pass here. So let's go ahead and build. If you don't see the diamond here, you could just build, and to get back that diamond for us to run our test. Everybody with me?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So let's go ahead and run that test. Test succeeded. So every time you run a test, you could check your code coverage, right? So right now, we run a test. Everybody run the test and it passed before I move on. Yes?
Yeah.
Okay. So we go back to code coverage. Where do we go for code coverage?
We go to the message symbol, the report.
So the report navigator, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we go to, where do we go?
Coverage.
Coverage, right? So that's the most recent run, 1042. The last time we ran was 1035. So we go to 1042. We click on code coverage here. We open up our projects. We go down to fellow. Well, I'm right in. So right now, fellow, it's no longer 0%, correct, everybody?
Yeah.
What do you guys have, 26?
Mine still says 0,
Yours
even though
says
my test succeeded.
0. Code coverage is turned on for you, correct? Obviously, yes, it is, because you see those metrics here, correct?
Yeah. Oh, wait, no, I was looking at the older test. My bad.
Yeah, look at so it's sorted by date, most recent.
Got it.
Very good. But we see one thing here, right? Do we see the function we just tested?
Yeah.
It says 83% though. Is there something wrong there?
85. I have 85. It's not
85.
100
It's not 100%. Anybody can tell me why?
because it's hard coded.
Because it's hard coded. That's one. You could say that. That's kind of fair. But go ahead, Eric.
Because we didn't check for a true possibility.
Because we did not check for a true possibility. Very good, sir. So if we go back to our function in fellow, here, what do we check for? False, yes?
Yeah.
Everybody with me?
Yep.
So it only runs line 22. It only runs line 22. Does everybody see that and why?
Yeah.
Not sure, right? Let's go back to it. So here, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
So here we pass in false. We call our function fellow. It has false. It doesn't run this code. It just goes directly to false here. This code is not running the test. So as Eric's saying, our true case is not tested. Okay? If the true case is not tested, the test does not hit that line. It tells you you're not 100% tested with that function. So right now there's a condition in our function. It needs to check all conditions in the test.
So we have to write another test?
We have to write another test, or we could refactor our code. Right? Either or. But let's do the latter. Actually, let's do writing the next test for that. So go back to your test. Go back to your test here. So test can be mentor. Let's just say false. And let's write another test. Function test can be mentor true.
Are y'all serious? We have to do this for like
Act here. Every part of your function needs to be tested, right? So now arrange. We'll just create a next fellow here. Fellow. Here I could do Peter. Peter is in the web. Peter is job ready. And here was the expected result equal to fellow can be mentor. And here we'll do our test. We'll say XCT assert equal to expected result. What do we expect here, Oscar?
Wait, can you repeat the question again?
What Boolean value are we expecting here on our function? True. Thank you, sir. Very good. Awesome. So now let's go ahead and run that test. So just Command U to run everything. Actually, just run all the tests. Command U. So both tests pass. Let's go back to, did everybody test pass before I continue? Hello?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, cool. So let us continue on. Go to our report navigator, go to, again, the most recent is 1047. Click on code coverage. Let's see what fellow looks like now. So if we open up fellow, now we have 100%. Did everybody get 100%?
Yep.
Okay, very good. Very good. Any questions before we continue?
Yeah, Alex, I have a question. So in
Yep.
order for 100, you have to not only test every function, but you have to test every possibility.
Yes. Every branch in that function needs to be tested to be 100%.
Okay, but that's really just if it's a linear and there's two options. But what if it returns like a string? That's going to be like one test will be.
If it returns a string, then you just test for the string. That's just one case, right? It just returns some string.
Okay, so really the only time it could return different is if it's like a
Yeah,
Boolean.
if it's conditions, right? Like if there's conditions, like there's branches. I could go in here or I could just go here, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Right? But if the function, let's see, like that function just returns some count or some array.
Yeah.
We'll just test the count on it.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So there's nothing else there to test.
Okay.
Right? So we'll get to that one. Very good. Other things you could do, actually, let us do it with, no, that's fine.
So
yeah, go ahead.
On our completion handlers, we need to check failure as well, correct?
Yes, which we do, right? If we go back to the Firebase a couple weeks ago.
Right.
Yep, very good, very good. Yes, go ahead.
Question. I still don't get 100% for this. I'm still at.
That's okay. Let's not for the whole model though, only for the function.
No, for the can be a mentor function, I'm still at 80.
You still at 80?
Yeah, it says 80 something percent,
That,
even though.
you checking the most recent, right?
Oh, never mind.
It's okay. Yeah, always check the most recent.
Okay, sorry.
You 100, right?
Yeah.
All right, very good. Okay, cool. So that gives us a glimpse at what code coverage looks like, right? We could test the rest of this as well. I'll probably leave that for us as an exercise. Let's go to ViewController stuff. Actually, let's write one more test for our count here, for the get fellows count. Let's test that function. So go back to fellow test. Go back to fellow test, and let's write a test. Test fellow, test get count, get fellows, right? That's the name. Test get fellows. Arrange, act, and assert. This is a static function, so we don't really care about that. We could just say fellows count. called on the fellow, that get fellows. That gives us a count. We don't even really need this here. Just go straight to assert here. I'll just leave at here. Here, I'll simply say XCT assert equal fellows count. What are we expecting here?
2.
All right, let's make it fail for now, and then we'll add 2 after. Very good, Tiffany. Again, I don't see my diamond here, so.
But wait, what you have right now is not fellows count. It's just the array of fellows. You still have.
Oh,
to
yeah. Good. Let's do fellows count. All right, we'll just make this fail for now. So again, if you don't see a diamond here on 38, just Command B. It's gonna come up. And we'll just run an individual test here. So just select the play button on your function getFellows. And it fails. If we open up the failure, here it says 2 is not equal to 3, right? Which makes sense. So now let's just make it pass. And let's
create the fellows array.
say that again.
Where did you create the fellows array?
Where did I create it?
Yeah.
Back in our fellow model, we have this static function here.
Okay. Sorry, yes.
No problem.
Yeah, I got it. Thank you.
Okay, cool, very good. Go back here, just run all our tests. Command U. Okay.
100.
What's that, Tiffany?
100.
Say that again?
It's 100. For the static function.
Yeah, it should be 100, right? So if you go back to your report navigator, you click on coverage, open up this, open up fellow. It should be 100% here for our get fellows, because again, like Amini was asking earlier, our function only has one entry or one operation. There's no condition there. So it only returns an array. Does that make sense?
Yes, but I do have a question. So when it failed, it still had 100%.
Because it's still tested even if it failed. You have a test for it.
I got a question.
Tiffany, does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. Thank you.
Okay, Eric?
So the 2 functions that we did not test, right? The 2 tests.
Yeah, this one, which one? The has social presence and yeah, has social presence, right?
So if we made one test, it would cover both of those?
If we made one test, it's still not gonna cover everything because it's a condition as well, correct?
All right.
Yep. Unless in your condition, you check in both of them.
Okay.
Very good. Okay, so let us go on to our ViewController because we haven't seen what testing a ViewController looks like. Let us do so. So go to your ViewController, the one ViewController we have, and let's go ahead and create a private variable called fellows is an array of fellows. Okay. We'll need access to this. We'll need access to this private var here. How can I get access to that and not change the variable at the same time?
Private setter, public getter.
Very good. So private set. Very good. Thank you, sir. Awesome. So now let's continue on. We'll write a function here. Let's make this public. Load fellows. Fellows with a function. What does it do? It loads our fellows. Fellows will get fellows, fellow dot get fellows. And I call my load fellows in here. Okay. Okay. So this ViewController loads, it calls load fellows. Load fellows gets whatever amount of fellows is in this static function, assigns it to our array. Now our array should have at least 2, correct? Yes, 2 fellows. Do we agree?
Yes.
Not here. Probably just put it here. Cool. So now let's go ahead and test this, right? Because right now, actually, let's do Command U again and see how much of our view controller was tested. So Command U. Bill succeeded. We go to our report navigator. We go to, again, the very top, the last one. Oh, well, not the last one, but the first one. We go to coverage. We open up our app. We go to view controller this time, right? And view controller, we have our load fellows. It said it's tested here, but we haven't tested the thing. This is not right, right? It shows us, because it just run the code in the view controller, but the view controller itself hasn't been tested yet. So let's go ahead and write a function to test this. So one way we could do it, we could add it in our fellows test, but we're not gonna do that. Create a new file for each function or each class you tested. So here I'll create a new unit test class. I'll call this ViewController test. I'll click create. I'm not gonna do any of that. And in our view controller, we'll say function test load fellows. I'll say arrange. I'll say act, and I will say assert. So the question is, how do we test our view controller, right? So if we go, so we say let view controller, I need to create an instance of my view controller. View controller, what's it called? View controller. Oh, we don't have the view controller. Somebody else, why can't I get my view controller here? Somebody who hasn't gone yet today. Kelby,
Okay.
why can I get access to my view controller?
Don't you need to import?
Yes, so I need to import a testable, import code, import our app, right? Import our app target. Now we could get access to the view controller. Okay. Again, here we don't care about storyboard. There's nothing in storyboard here, so we just get a generic view controller instance here. So now we have the view controller, right? So here I could say first get an instance of the view controller. Then we need to load. Then we need to load the view controller. We need to, load the view controller. How can I load the view controller? View controller dot load. So load view if needed, right? Loads the view controller's view if it has not yet been loaded, right? So this function here, it basically loads, it first loads the view controller if it's not loaded yet, right? So the minute I do that, my view did load, my whole view controller gets into memory, right? So load the view controller into memory. So now our view controller is memory, great. Next, let's go ahead and call ViewController.load. Well, we almost don't need to do this because we've done that already. Do we all agree?
Oh, because once we call the load view, it's gonna run the function that's in the view did load?
Exactly, exactly. So basically the act here, I could take this and put it up here. And now we just need to assert really. What's a good assert here to write?
The count.
The count, right? So we need to somehow get access. That's why we made our private getter public, right? For the fellows. So now we could simply say, actually, let's put a constant here. Fellows equal to view controller dot fellows. And now we write our assert. So we'll say XCT assert equal fellows dot count equal to 2. Okay, great. Now let's run this. So Command U, let's just run our test. So today we're able to see how to test a ViewController's functions, and we're able to see how to get code coverage on our actual app itself, okay? So here, our test pass, and just to make sure, just make it fail. It's okay to make your test fail to make sure everything is working correctly, because here 2 is not equal to 4. And now make it pass again. And now 2 is 2, and all our tests passed, and our app coverage is in a better state. Coverage. So now we are 61, right? And there's functions there that we did not write. Like for example, app delegate. That's why sometimes in the app delegate, you see it's very stripped down. Like some people go out of their way to just use whatever they need in the app delegate. So that number goes up. Same thing for the scene delegate, right? If we open that up, right? So the functions like scene will resign active. You could remove that from your scene delegate. Again, some people get really like a personality about code coverage and getting to that 100% number. Right now, our app is at 61%, right? But there's a lot of things that we did not write, right? So like the scene will enter back foreground. If you don't need that, well, not this one. This one here, scene did enter background. You could remove that function. That's going to increase your code coverage, for example. Scene will resign active. Unless you're using it in your app, you could remove it. Anything you're not using in your app in the scene delegate, you could remove it. Your view controller, everything here is pretty good. Our app delegate here, again, this did discard scene sessions. It's 0%. So this gives us our fellow, which is more important here. So for the homework, I'll leave those 2 for us to do. So make sure our has social presence is tested and also code coverage goes up to 100%, right? Cool, good.
Alex?
So, yes.
I'm looking at my coverage now and my can be mentor is at 0%.
Can be mentor, the one we just tested earlier?
The one that was at 100, yeah.
Can be mentor.
And I still have those tests. Like
it's you're looking at the first, the last result, right?
Yes.
At 11 o'clock or whatever?
Yeah.
Can be mentor. Command U. Command U, just run on your test to make sure.
Uh-huh. Still at 0. It was at 100, you know, now it's at 0.
I could check it offline. Did anybody else have that same issue that Luba is having? Hello?
Oh.
Okay, Luba, I'll work with you offline. Is that cool?
Okay.
All right, very good. Okay, so that will just wrap up our module. Again, I was just wanting to make sure that we know what code coverage is and how to look at it in our app as we code, right? If you write a model, it should not be at 100%, right? I mean, sorry, it should not be at 0%. You should aim to get this close to 100%. If there's a function you did not write, for example, scene delegate, right? If you want it to get closer to 100, as I said, you could strip some of those functions out that you don't need, that you're not using. Obviously, not app will, for example, app delegate, not did finish launch div options, like this is 100%, but things like did discard scene sessions, you could remove those functions there. Cool? Any questions? And again, to review, if you have Firebase, which we all probably have Firebase, there's no need to test Firebase pods. You do not write the pods, you should not be testing that. So only, so go back, go to your edit scheme, go to test, and make sure you only testing the target that you're interested in. If it's not, if Firebase, you did not write the pods, don't test that. There's no reason to test that. Everybody with me? Yes?
Yeah.
All right, very, very good. Okay, so we will conclude here this code coverage module, and we also add unit tests there too. So feel free to use that as a tool that you use. And again, the to-dos is just like to make sure our model is 100% tested, right? Our model here should be 100% tested.